from John Paul Stevens. There's also a tweet storm from Michael Ian Black, who's a comedian. And that means that he must know lots about guns, right? Because he's a comedian. So that means that he knows a lot about guns. So here's his tweet storm. He says, quote, I'll say it. Assault weapons aren't the problem. Handguns are the problem. By all means, ban AR-15s and the like, but handguns kill far more people. The solution is to repeal and replace the Second Amendment. Make gun ownership a privilege, not a right. Okay, at least they're being honest now. At least Michael Ian Black and John Paul Stevens, they're being honest now. And they will be increasingly honest as time goes on. I'm old enough to remember when the Democrats claimed they weren't for nationalized health care. And now, of course, this has become a thing they like to do, is nationalized health care. And Michael Ian Black continues along these lines. He says, 38,000 Americans died from gun violence last year. What number would you like to compromise to? 20,000? Well, no, I'd like that number to be 0. But let's recognize that 38,000 Americans didn't die of gun violence. 2/3 of those died of suicide. And among the others were a various number of criminals. And then he continues along these lines as well. Cutlery doesn't cause obesities, but guns do cause gun deaths. Well, that's idiotic. Guns do not cause gun deaths. That's like saying guns cause death. No, the person who pulls the trigger causes death. The person who uses the cutlery is what makes them fat. So actually, this is just dumb. And the stupidity continues. Is a long round. Yes, having the ready ability to take someone's life is dominion over that person. Gun ownership could be viewed as slavery by another name. So me owning a gun and protecting myself is slavery. So I'm glad to know that Michael Ian Black is a complete historical ignoramus. As you may have heard just a few moments ago, the Dred Scott decision was fearful that black people would have guns. In fact, gun control legislation in the South was specifically designed for literally 100 years to prevent black people from being able to protect themselves. Listen to Condoleezza Rice talk about her dad having a gun and how he helped protect her family with that gun. If you really believe that gun ownership is slavery, you have no knowledge of history, contemporary politics, or gun ownership. I mean, this is just inane. It's just inane. Gun ownership viewed as slavery. I'll tell you what's slavery. What slavery is me giving up my gun to a government that says it will protect me, and then they let me die in a hail of bullets when a criminal just decides not to obey the law. But he's not done yet. Michael Ian Black continues, how's it working out for people of color now? So somebody points out to him that black people have not been able to get guns historically, and that's been bad for them. He says, how's it working out for people of color now? Well, considering that black people are largely shooting black people and white people are largely shooting white people, it's hard to imagine that people of color want their gun rights removed. Law-abiding people of color want their gun rights removed. That's a weird argument. So, again, all these arguments are sort of weird. And then he finally continues, and he says, yes, evidence supports the fact that easy access to guns increases suicide attempts and successful suicides. In fact, the evidence is mixed on that. The Japanese suicide rate has remained intensely high despite the fact there are very few guns in the country. Again, none of this has any relationship to reality, but doesn't matter. Folks on the left are firmly convinced it's time to get rid of the Second Amendment, and we thank them for their honesty, because now we can have a real debate, a real conversation. It's all I asked for from Piers Morgan years ago. Just tell me the truth about what you want, and then, guess what? Guess what? We can have a conversation, and we can decide whether Americans are really ready to surrender their right to self-defense and the right to keep and bear arms to a government that fails to protect them on a regular basis. Okay, so meanwhile, a lot of hubbub has broken out about quote-unquote attacks on the students of Parkland. No one's attacking the students of Parkland. We're attacking their arguments. They have a right to speak out. We all feel terrible for them. Obviously, witnesses to a shooting have gone through something traumatic and horrible. It does not make them experts on gun control. We're all making the same argument here. And it's amazing to see which survivors of gun violence are actually put in the media and how the media plays this stuff up. So I do love this. Morning Joe did another one of their ubiquitous montages. This montage had to do with the March for Our Lives on Saturday, and they played Joe Scarborough's protest song over it. So here's what that montage sounded like. Once in your life. And they're showing all of these marches about Vietnam. And now they're showing this montage of Iraq. And there's a Tiananmen Square. They showed this yesterday. Okay, the march against poverty. And now, there it is, the March for Our Lives. Okay, so they basically just recut this montage in order to include the March for Our Lives. Okay, then the real reason for this, of course, the real reason that they decided to show this montage is so they can push Joe Scarborough's crappy song. I do love that. The only way that Joe Scarborough can sell his song is to do montages on Morning Joe where they play his song. Like, nobody's buying the song, apparently. So it's like if every time I played something sad on the show, I played myself playing Schindler's List. Joe Scarborough has to play. It's just amazing. Every time there's a protest now, he's going to find like 3 guys standing outside of McDonald's protesting for a raise, and suddenly Joe Scarborough is going to show up with his guitar and start playing. It's going to be amazing. I love it. I love it. It's so self-serving and so self-aggrandizing. It's incredible. Okay, but speaking of the students who must never, ever be, their arguments must never be attacked, again, it's amazing which victims we choose to focus on. So the Eagles of Death Metal frontman went after the students. He said that these Parkland students are acting inappropriately. He is, of course, exactly right. And here is what he had to say. He unleashed a torrent of criticism. So he put up a bunch of posts. And in some of the posts, he said that some of the student marchers were, quote unquote, pathetic and disgusting for playing hooky at the expense of 16 of your classmates' blood. And then he shared this image of Emma Gonzalez ripping up the U.S. Constitution. Now, what's funny about that is, I don't know if you've seen this going around, but there is an image, it's a GIF, that's been photoshopped of Emma Gonzalez tearing up a copy of the U.S. Constitution. Anybody who watches it knows that this is obviously a GIF that is meant to be symbolic, that Emma Gonzalez doesn't like the U.S. Constitution, and therefore she's ripping it up. If you believe that GIF was real, or that picture was real, then you're an idiot. But the media is playing it like the entire right believes that picture is real. That, of course, is not true. Anyway, he says, quote, as the survivor of a mass shooting, I can tell you from firsthand experience that all of you protesting and taking days off from school insult the memories of those who were killed and abuse and insult me and every other lover of liberty by your every action. May every one of these disgusting, vile abusers of the dead live as long as possible so they can have the maximum amount of time to endure their shame and be cursed. Like, it's a pretty harsh language. I wouldn't use it, but does he have unquestioned moral authority, Jesse Hughes? He was the band leader of Eagles of Death Metal, who was, of course, at the Bataclan when that place was shot up, right? It was his concert that was attacked. Does he have unquestioned moral authority? Is he allowed to question other survivors? Or is it only certain survivors that we give unquestioned moral authorities? And then I do like this. He tweeted out a graphic that says, pills that are hard to swallow. Our guns aren't going anywhere. There are only two genders, and Donald Trump will be your president for 7 more years. Yeah, it's a little bit funny, I will admit. And again, are we allowed to question the arguments of students? Because some of the arguments are really dumb. So here's one Parkland student who is saying that, who's on with Brian Stelter, and inadvertently saying something really true and really profound about the state of journalism in our country.
I think that, for me, the purpose of journalism is to raise, the voices of people that maybe don't have a voice. And so I think that in its own right, journalism is a form of activism.
Okay, so a lot of people on the left were saying, we're trying to distance themselves from this comment that journalism is a form of activism. It is pretty obvious in the wake of these shootings that journalism is indeed a form of activism. I've been saying this for a very long time. It's why I call myself an opinion journalist. I'm honest about it. Folks at CNN are not honest about it. And they claim that they are objective news journalists. In reality, they do have an agenda. They are pushing that agenda. They are pushing that agenda day in and day out. No wonder the student journalist believes that journalism is activism. She watches CNN. Of course she believes journalism is activism. If I watch CNN on a regular basis, I'd believe that too. Okay, journalism for CNN is indeed activism. This is how journalists see themselves. In fact, I remember I visited the ABC News offices with the God King of the Daily Wire, Jeremy Boring, and one of the things that said on the wall was something to the effect of, we give voice to the voiceless. And I just thought to myself, that's not journalism. Journalism isn't about giving voice to the voiceless. It's about objectively covering facts. But people in the journalistic business believe that it is their job to actually push a particular political agenda. They believe that they are do-gooders in the world, not just people covering the news and informing folks. This girl has obviously imbibed from that, and she's just spitting back what she's heard from the media. Unfortunately, she told the truth a little bit too honestly right there for the media to handle. Okay, so in just a second, we'll get to Stormy Daniels' fallout. We'll get to Paul Ryan and all the rest. But first, I want to say thank you to our sponsors over at Genucel. So you've been wishing that those bags under your eyes would just go away, or your wife, she's been wishing that. Well, this is why Genucel is there. Genucel is a serum with plant stem cell technology from Chamonix. My wife uses it. My mom uses it. My mom steals the materials from my wife in order to use it. Okay, it is just fantastic. Susan from New Jersey says, I've been using Genucel for a couple of months. The puffiness around my eyes is gone. The crow's feet, the small lines, they've disappeared, and they have not come back. Again, my wife uses it. She loves it. My mom uses it. She loves it. My sisters are getting it. There's a reason that Genucel is so popular, and that's because it works. With its instant effects, you will see results actually in the first 12 hours or your money back. I guarantee it. More importantly, so do the folks over at Chamonix. So order now. Get that Genucel Collagen Builder and Deep Firming Serum. 2 bestsellers also free. You can look younger. You can look better. Call 800-663-2904, 800-663-2904, or visit Genucel.com. That's Genucel.com, Genucel.com, 800-663-2904. If you call right now, express shipping is also free. It's 800-663-2904. And again, Genucel.com. That's Genucel.com. They've been advertising with me since my days in Seattle, and my wife has continued to use their product even since my days in Seattle. It's been years now, which is why my wife is young and beautiful and smoking hot and also a doctor. So Genucel.com. Check it out, 800-663-2904. Try it for yourself. They really are great. Okay, so meanwhile, the Stormy Daniels controversy continues. Now, let's be real about this. The real reason that people care about Stormy Daniels is it gives them an excuse to Google Stormy Daniels lesbian activity on Google Images. Okay, let's be real about this. If Stormy Daniels were not a porn star,